Hey there. So, I wanted to talk today about the idea of skills and gaining skills and refining skills because, as I've stated previously, I've always had this huge passion for curiosity and learning and the idea of gaining new skills that I can add to my repertoire. And I've always struggled with this in regards to a professional mindset, purely because at a very young age there was always that saying where it is jack of all trades, master of none. The idea that if you have all of these different skills, you've never focused enough on one of them to become a master in that craft. And then partnering that with like my love of Bruce Lee's sort of mentality of I don't fear the man who has thrown 1,000 punches once, but rather I fear the man that has thrown one punch 1,000 times. And this idea that through repetition and refinement of one thing, it becomes the thing that stands out from everyone else. And again, I've struggled with this because I've always been the person to jump into new things that caught my attention, the idea that something new is there that I can latch onto. And then in, I want to say, 3 or 4 years ago, I actually learnt that the jack of all trades thing, like the quote, is actually longer than that. And it is jack of all trades, master of none, though oftentimes better than master of one. And this started to speak to me in a different way, in the sense that, admittedly, if you are looking for that one specific thing, yes, you go to the person that does it the best. But in everything else, most of the time, we want people who are adaptable in most regards. We like the person that can jump from thing to thing that's still in their area of expertise. So I started thinking about this and I looked into stuff like the Renaissance man, which comes from stuff like Leonardo da Vinci, that had so many different areas that they focused on and had this wide variety of skills that they could adapt into any situation. So over the past 5-ish years, I have been kind of embracing this mentality a lot more. I've been going, well, I can start learning this and it can blend into what I do now. For instance, like when I was just getting out of university, I didn't know business. I didn't know how to deal with the front speaking to clients. I didn't know how to charge properly. I didn't know what to do when it comes to negotiations and contracts and all these things. And that's a whole different area of expertise. I am not a business coach. I am not a master of business. That said, I have learned enough to make me dangerous in regards to what I do. It is a bonus skill set that I've grabbed and added into my thing. And I definitely wasn't good at it at the start, but there is this element that pushed me forward going, this is something that is valuable. And if I start adding that, it can become even more powerful when pushed in conjunction with the rest of my skills. And then I started keeping up that mentality. So, I'm not sure if I mentioned it previously, but at the end of 2019, I believe, I started going, well, I've always had terrible handwriting. It's never been something I've been proud of. I've actually been made fun of it, like throughout high school and whatnot. But then I decided, you know what, this is something I should probably focus on. And I loved the look and art of calligraphy. So I spent like a month just diving headfirst into calligraphy and learning all of these different aspects. And I fell in love with it. To this day, I still write with a fountain pen day after day because there is a feel to it that I didn't have before I experienced it. And through that, not only did like my general handwriting and whatnot become better, I became more efficient with the way that I wrote things. So be it with an actual pen and paper or when I'm typing things out, I'm thinking a lot more about the words themselves and what they mean. But likewise, it is a different skill set that like blended really well with my design. And I didn't really think about it at the time, but when it comes to typography and whatnot, yes, I had a good understanding of it. I'd studied it before, like at a high level, I've taught it, but until I started really spending time designing each letter with a pen, it became this thing of, oh, I've never looked at this letter in such high detail before. I've never looked at this form. I've never really paid attention to the stroke of this. And this is something I didn't really even think about, but because it was something I was passionate about, I jumped into it and started just consuming it and adding it to my skill set, and it just bled into other areas. And it gets even weirder than that at times because I remember when I was growing up, there was a point where I could get a job, and I didn't for the longest time because I didn't want to work at McDonald's. I didn't want to work at a fast food place or like a retail place because I'd heard stories of other friends who were a little bit older that did that and just started hating it. And that isn't to disrespect people who go there. I take my hats off to them. I just realized that it's not well suited to me. So when I did finally get a job, it was at a rollerblading rink, teaching people how to rollerblade, skating around, making sure people didn't hurt themselves. And at this time, I was also quite introverted. I wasn't really the person that stood out and talked to people, ironically enough. But during this time, I was one of the only people that could actually get on the microphone and announce things and run the games and tell people the place is closing and whatnot. And through that, I started to find my voice. And I don't mean that in the sense of like, oh, well, spiritually I found voice. No, I mean like I actually started to pay attention to the way I was speaking, to the voice that I was using, the one that you're hearing right now. And in that, I started to then really start paying attention to the intricacies of what I was saying. The idea is that when I'm speaking, there is a constant flow of thoughts that has to be almost instantly filtrated through my head. Oh, sorry, instantly filtered, should I say. But in that, there is this moment of paying attention to something that I didn't before. And that has bled so much more into, again, the way that I speak, not only just like verbally, but when I'm writing things, I now think about the words I'm using. It blended into, funnily enough, when I started teaching. When I got to university, I already had those years of experience of speaking. And I had teachers that were literally going, hey, you should potentially pursue a career in voice acting or something like that. I tried it, didn't work out. That was probably because I didn't understand business and how to sell myself at that point. But the idea was that it was a skill set that I didn't know I really needed to pay attention to until it was right in front of me as a valuable skill. And that's the mentality I go in with most of the things nowadays. That if there is something interesting to me, I will still spend the time to learn it. Because one day I know it's going to come back in some either minuscule or really effective way and make everything I do better. I was having a conversation with a friend last night, and they were looking at some of the previous videos and said that they had no idea how I do these things. They couldn't keep up with what I was doing, obviously because the time lapse is sped up. But it made me realize that, well, yes, when I was starting this thing, I had no idea what any of this was as well. The only reason I can do these so quickly is because I've been doing it for years upon years upon years and refining my skill set. I can use these tools in front of me to go, this is wrong, this is right. I can adjust this very slightly. And although it may seem insignificant to most people, to me, it makes all the difference and the final result shows because of it. So there's this duality to going, I need to focus on what I know, but also I need to focus on the things I don't know, and spending equal amounts of time valuing both. Because I think that's where my real success lies. The ability to go, here's this thing, here's that thing, let's put them together and see what happens. For instance, these videos. I didn't really think of recording my art before, but through teaching, I realized that people actually valued that. Likewise, I love having conversations with people that go through these sorts of thought processes, and I realized that I'm also good at just kind of continually speaking through my thoughts. It's a skill set that I have developed. And because of that, when people were going, why don't you post things? Why don't you share things more? And then me wanting to document my thoughts through it, as I was growing up. It's a case of me going, these are two things that I can push together and make the video you're seeing now. There's value in that. So that's why I started doing it. And it's always interesting going back and going, well, what is something that I haven't used yet, but I spent time learning? Like, for instance, I remember one time I was fascinated with magic and playing cards. So I can do a lot of cardistry things, which is, if you haven't looked it up, look up cardistry. So cardistry. It is mind-boggling. I'm nowhere near as good as the people who do it professionally, but I have enough to get by. And right now I'm literally thinking, well, how can I use that? And although nothing may come to mind right now, there will be a point where I'm like, hey, I have this experience here. There is something there that I can use. So before I start rambling on too much, I will end the video there. And once again, thank you so much for actually like coming and looking at these videos, because it does mean the world to me that my thoughts are valuable to some people enough to watch these longer videos. But yeah, I'd be interested to see what is like one of those random skill sets that you've learned, like that has come back to help you in the long run. What is that thing that you thought, oh, well, this is just something I did in my own time and it's become a huge valuable asset to you? If you have any of those, either feel free to write them in the comments or send me a message. I'd love to hear about them because, again, I'm always looking out to gain new skills. So, once again, I'll leave it there. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you next time.